And welcome back. Now, Fred Khumalo's 2 Tons of Fun, and you also have Crossing the River for You, I'd Steal a Goat by Niq Mhlongo, Sue Nyathi's and Angel's Demise, Stephen King's Fairy Tale. These just some of the top books for the year 2022. And this year saw an influx in the number of books published. So to help us page through some of 2022's top reads, we joined via Zoom now by Reading Activist and Bookworm GP curator Lorraine Sithole and voracious reader and book reviewer Carmen Coetsee. Lorraine, Carmen, thanks so much to both of you for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you for having us.
And what a year it's been. I mean, it was just one after the other, books being released left, right and center. I think Leanne and I also had quite a tough time because, you know, when these books just keep coming at you and at some point you're like, I'm not reading on demand, because, to do these reviews is also quite taxing. But thank you so much for joining us. And Lorraine, let me start with you. Before we get into the top 10 for this year, let's start with how this year's been like for you as a reading activist and a book reviewer.
Thank you so much. I mean, this year has been quite fantastic for me. I mean, if you know, over the past 2 years, all the work was being done behind devices and being able to go outside into communities and share with people my love for books and most importantly, promote excellent books that have been coming from home soil. So this year has been fantastic for the reading public, as well as I'd like to believe for the publishing value chain.
Now, Carmen, let's just quickly talk about the current state of the country's literary industry, how it was hit by the COVID-19 pandemic, and as Lorraine says, it was so nice to finally get out. How has it affected, this industry, and are we slowly bouncing back at this stage?
I think it's safe to say that bookshops are busier than ever, which is lovely to see, and it might have to do with the fact that it's Christmas, but the book sales have been going up and up this whole year, and it's so great to see. But what we actually saw was people were reading more during COVID, but the book sales weren't going up, which meant that they were reading their own books that they already own, which is so lovely to see. And of course, the explosion of book talk. I feel very old when I say that, but book talk is a huge thing, the book community on TikTok, and that has also helped a lot with book sales. And reading has become, well, I hate to say that it wasn't popular, breaks my heart, but it is much more popular now, thanks to the coronavirus and thanks to social media.
So, Lorraine, if we can start getting into the top 10 books, because I know many people, when it comes to this time of year, love to give books. I'm one of them. It's not always the easiest thing because you need to think of who the person is, what it is that they might like. So let's just run through a few of the top 10. Your number one, Lorraine, for the year 2022, and why you believe this one is a cut above the rest.
Oh my God, what a difficult question. It's like asking a mom, who's your favorite child? But I think the one book for me that is right at the top of my head is Fred Khumalo's 2 Tons of Fun. I mean, it is set in Alex. It is as classy as they come, and it is told from the point of view of a 15-year-old Lerato. I mean, Fred is an established author, and he's been writing for more than 20 years. Now, to be able to capture the voice of a young girl who goes to a school in Alex, lives in Alex, was such a breath of fresh air. And also, the book is quite hilarious. I mean, you look at the title, if you know the song, if you know the duo, Two Tons of Fun, they were bubbly, they were big, and this is what this book is all about. But there is also a seriousness to it. Fred addresses a lot of social ills. As I said, Lerato comes from Alex and lives in Alexander. And, as much as we love communal living, it is also, people living on top of each other. There is no room for breath. There is no room for growth. But we see Lerato facing all these challenges that comes with a community living so close to each other. And I really don't want to give much away from the book, but this is the one book that both young readers and older readers are going to enjoy. For me, as a mom, reading about Lerato was so, so refreshing. But also as a young girl who grew up in the township, I could recognize so many things, so many things. And also reading it as a mom, you cannot help but put yourself in the shoes of the community.
Now, that's very interesting. And I think, Lorraine, you've just helped, a lot of people, myself included, in terms of, whether this is a book that I would give to a certain person over another. And I think I've just actually made up my mind in that regard. But Carmen, you also read Fred Khumalo. Let's just bring you in on this as well before we go to some of the other books.
Well, yeah, Fred Khumalo is such an amazing author, and I think my family and friends are sick and tired of me talking about his writing, but I'm not done yet, because he actually he released a young adult or teen novel, Crossing the River, which you mentioned as well, and I included that in a gift recommendation article that I wrote for the South African, because it's very difficult to buy books, as you said, for other people, but especially I think when they are younger. And this is a book that I would absolutely recommend if you are buying for, I'd say 12 to 18, thereabouts, the teenage years. It has got his incredible writing paired with just amazing characters. And I wish I read this book when I was younger. I think it's fantastic. So yes, he's also a standout author for me.
He certainly is. And, thinking back to the years when he was, writing for some of the country's top newspaper publications. And, even then he was a top favorite, a firm favorite for me, Fred Khumalo. And I follow him on social media as well. And even there, Fred is just so unmistakable. You just want to find Fred's post because he just has a way with words, a way of telling a story that is just so inviting. And before you know it, you are immersed into wherever Fred is trying to take you. So definitely one that I will think about in terms of buying for younger people. And then let me bring it back to you, Carmen, in terms of your top read for this year.
Again, like Lorraine said, it is like choosing a favorite sibling.
Fortunately, books don't have feelings, so don't worry about it.
Yes, but I give them feelings, and it's so difficult. But I would have to say Daisy Darker by Alice Feeney. It's a debut novel, and I love supporting debut novelists who are just starting out. And I read a lot of thrillers, mystery fiction, and this stood out from all the rest that I've read this year. It was very kindly sent to me by Exclusive Books, and I want everyone to read this book. The characters, the mystery element, I think it's really difficult today because there's so many mystery stories out there, not just in fiction, but on TV as well. To actually have a twist that you don't see coming is very rare, and Alice Feeney has done it. And it sounds like a cliche, but it will have you on the edge of your seat. This book really will. And what I loved about it is it perfectly captured a family dynamic that is quite unique. But if you know that dynamic yourself, then you will immediately recognize it. And it's done superbly. And as I said, the twist you won't see coming. But that's paired with just the most beautiful writing that I hate overly flowery writing that is sort of very descriptive for the sake of just being descriptive, and it doesn't really add to the story much. But Alice Feeney does it so well. She almost has she says more with what is not said. And I think that is such a clever way of writing. And again, my family's very sick of me talking about her. But what an incredible debut author. I cannot wait to see what else she brings out.
Okay, this was perhaps not the greatest idea because, you know, I was at Exclusive Books not so long ago, and yeah, by the time you're sitting with 3 and you're looking at your bank balance, and you're like, I have to now choose among these children, as you aptly say, it's going to be a tough one. But Lorraine, also notable in your top 10, people such as Sue, Nyathi, Niq Mhlongo as well. So let's talk about these authors, and you know they've also been consistent in releasing books. But let's talk about what it is about them that you particularly like this year.
I'll start with Niq Mhlongo's For You, I'd Still a Goat. It is a collection of short stories that he started writing during COVID, and the book was launched last year, and in the beginning of this year. And what stood out for me was wherever we go, we always carry the element of home. I mean, Niq was in Berlin during the whole COVID and lockdown period, the 2-year period. But this collection was able to capture and retain the townshipness in his stories. I mean, all 12 stories, again, Niq has a certain hilarity that he brings in alongside interrogating important themes that affect us as South Africans. And as you read the stories, you know, you cannot help but laugh. I mean, I think for me, this book came across as one of Niq's best, because he literally pushed himself out of the box. He talks about big global issues, but he gives them a South African perspective. I mean, he speaks about xenophobia and all the violence that we saw when that xenophobia attacks flared up in our townships here in South Africa. He speaks about gender fluidity, and he gives us such a hilarious twist at the end, which also puts a spotlight on the question around masculinity. I mean, in this particular short story, the husband is faced with a moral dilemma, but because he is trying to protect his own masculinity, he can't really share everything with his family. And also, there is the title story, For You, I'd Still a Goat. It is set in Berlin, and this young man has to do a cultural ritual, and he needs a goat. Where do you find a goat in Berlin? So for me, this collection, again, came across as one of Niq's top books. That is why it made it on my list. Now, moving on to Sue and Angel's Demise is Sue's 4th book. And, you know, if you have traveled with Sue along her writing journey, then you will see that, you know, there is always a visible layer of improvement to the way that her stories are framed, to the way that she brings in continental issues so very close to the people who need to hear those issues and contextualize them. Now, in Angel's Demise, the narrative time is almost 30 years. It is centered around Angel, whose parents, you know, young parents, as soon as they give birth to her, then they go and they joined the revolutionary movement. Now, Angel stays and is adopted by a white family. Now you have this black girl who is straddling, two lives. She is Black. She is also part of a white family. Where does she fit in? And she lives bang in the middle of Zimbabwe on a farm. And obviously all the farm workers are Black. So not only is she grappling with her own identity as a young Black girl growing into herself, because there comes a time in a person's life, as soon as you learn identity politics, you look at yourself, you look at your family. I don't look like them. My hair is different, my skin color is different, all my features are different. Who am I? Where do I belong? And then on the other side of the fence, she sees people who look like her, but they do not belong in the world that she lives in. And Sue just brings in everything that she has in this book. And it's also transcontinental, Angel, although there is a Zambian as well as Zimbabwean history coming in, she also has these relatives who live outside of the continent. And whenever they come in, then the dynamics change. So the reason I really, really loved this book is not only because the cover is fantastic, it is all Christmassy. I mean, look at the image. Can you just see that Duke? That Duke is absolutely phenomenal. But this is Sue's best. I know I said the Gold Diggers was best, but comparing the depth of the stories in this novel, fantastic, fantastic, fantastic. If there is one book that you have to buy this Christmas, An Angel's Demise is yours.
Well, Mvusiwe Kaya says, I'm loving this segment about top 10 reads for 2022 on Morning Live. Habiba also agrees, saying buying 2 tons of fun and crossing the river for a girl close to my heart. So you're certainly already helping out. And then Carmen, just as we wrap this up, which of the books do you think, because we've seen this influx of books published this year, which are some of those that you believe are underrated?
Oh, okay. That is very easy. It depends on what you call underrated as well. But I think it's not really an underrated author, but I've not heard much about this author in a South African context. But Taylor Jenkins Reid, her latest novel, Carrie Soto is Back. It's very popular in America and in the UK, but I want to get it more popular in South Africa just because it's so incredible. She's not an underrated author, but this is mainly for the people that I want to read this book, which is everyone. Everyone should read it. It's incredible. I think that is underrated, and again, a great Christmas present. And then the other book that I loved was A Short History of the World in 50 Books by Daniel Smith. This is such an incredible. It's nonfiction, but it would also make an absolutely incredible present, because if you're not sure what someone likes to read, but you know that they do like reading, they will love this book. It goes through the entire world history as much as it can, through the 50 books that were most formative in our present context, and it's very good. This is one that will work for everyone. You can buy it for your mother-in-law, she will be impressed by you. You can buy it for a difficult person, they will love it. It's a fail-safe Christmas gift.
This one sounds like one that I need for myself, Carmen. But thanks so much to both of you for just helping us wade through all of that. And Reading Activist and Bookworms GP curator Lorraine Sithole, and voracious reader and book reviewer Carmen Coetsee, helping us page through the top reads for 2022. And great that those of you who are struggling or were not too sure have found some sort of assistance with this particular one. So that's where we're going to leave that, just playing out with some of the books there. And maybe you've seen something, heard something this morning. I certainly have for one that I want for myself. So that's where we'll park that one for the time being.